Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back to VEGA Conflict. I have so far been enjoying the Orator and her Zealots. And I honestly can't wait for the higher mark levels so I can put higher levels on them, and I already found a use for mine. Basing. Surprisingly, they work exceedingly well. These are only level 2, and I would like to equip the level 3, and eventually when we get the level 4 reusable item version that there's no ETA at the moment of, I'll make sure I equip them just because it makes sense. Because the damage per second would increase by over 50% over the current value. Oh yeah, this is one of the Axis heavy cargo outposts, I think. But so far my impressions at first were wow. That wow factor of just having the ship. Second impression was actually fairly interesting because I found a few ways to more or less abuse how these Zealots are used, especially in PvE farming. But more importantly, the fact that they respawn makes them one of the greatest assets that I can think of. I mean, you see how easily they just went through this base. And then the Orator herself, when she gets within range, she can start ripping everything apart with whatever weapons you equipped on her. And again, these are all level 2. No level 3s here. And this would be going 50% faster if I had the level 4. Which again, at the current moment, we don't know how they're going to be introduced. All we know is that they're going to be a reusable item of some kind, but we don't know if they're going to be a fragment drop, something we have to buy from an event, or if they're just going to become a general drop for all the Orator targets. You know, after you get the Orator, you'd be able to start farming for them. At the moment, there is no information I'm aware of about them, so for the time being, this is what we have. And so far, what we have is extremely, extremely hilarious because of how quickly and easily they can do things that... It's hilarious. It's the best way to put it. It's just utterly hilarious how easily the Zealots are capable of farming certain targets for the Orator. And they have enough damage to be viable in quite a few situations. Now, what I'm going to use mine for is exactly what you see here. However, I'm going to build them up to Pharmacon outposts, well, the occupied ones. I'm going to build up a fleet just for that purpose as well. Because I'm going to turn this ship, due to this impressive range, I'm going to use it to farm the outposts during events for essentially no repair time. So right off the bat, we've been given a ship that, if we fit it correctly and give it decent weapons and everything like that, it can farm extremely easily, surprisingly. But on top of that, the ship itself, I love the look of it. Let's just go ahead and let's take a good look. At first, when we heard that it was getting a chin, I was worried that it was going to look like the mothership's face and the Sovereign's face. No, it actually looks like it has a bridge and then an underhang. And I honestly like that in most ships, surprisingly. However, in my eyes, the wings are a little bit too long, and had they been brought in a little bit more, it would have been a lot more interesting, but even with the current shape of the ship, it looks great. Let's go ahead and let's attack another outpost. This time we'll attack the normal cargo outpost. Alright. And there is a few things I can give as tips and things like that. First off, the Zealots, they don't always attack the target you want them to, so in this case, focus firing certain things, as you noticed, it was a little bit buggy before, because I would focus fire one thing that was within the arc, and they would still focus fire something else. Quick solution to that is simply just switch from offensive mode to defensive mode, and then back to offensive mode. They'll engage the target you want. Other than that, I've had absolutely no issues with the Zealots, how they function, or anything like that at all. Oh. There is another thing that I want to point out about them. Their engine area, it's animated. If you look here, you can actually see it spinning in there. And one thing that I wanted was animate ships again, to where the ships had something on them that was moving or functioning, and the Zealots deliver that. And I honestly like how it looks in the game. And right now, waiting on the level 2 mark upgrades and things like that, just because I honestly can't wait to get to mark upgrading this ship, because I'm going to have a blast with it, especially using it to farm for certain targets. Because the Zealots, they're ideal for situations in basing, as you can see. However, the higher levels would be what I'd be using for the Pharmacon outposts. Yeah. But they're durable enough in outposts that they can tank just about everything in the base. And one of my things is I usually attack in-planet fleets at first, and I did with the Orator as well, just to test how the Zealots behave, and there's multiple tactics that came up from that that can be used to farm higher level targets using Zealots. But I'll do a much more in-depth look at the ship during another video. For now, I just want to talk about it a bit in general. First off, for any of you who have it, what are your first impressions of the Orator and her Zealots? Good? Bad? Something in between? At the moment, I'm still experimenting and finding out all the ways with which to use Zealots, but at the moment, I see them being good at PvE outpost farming. Also, as with what I said before, you can also just deselect the target and reselect the target to focus fire on it, and they'll jump right to it with no issues. But other than that, so far the Orator and the Zealots they've been extremely interesting to experiment with and just find out how they function. And basing, as you can see with the Orator and the Zealots, it's something different. Something very different, and you can go through the attack and not take any damage whilst just using the spawn ships. And as you can see, they tank the entire time, their shields are still at a good amount. And that's one thing I always did like about ships. Now let's go ahead and let's head back to the base for a minute. Okay, and this is going to be even better. So exactly how can the Orator be used in PvE farming? Well, when I first saw Cyrus's video, I noticed that the Zealots were treated as ships, as they should be, and that meant that the AI would focus fire them and begin to engage them and completely ignore any other ships. So I used to use a wall of guns and a carrier, and the wall of guns needed some kind of ship to be a distraction. Well, in this case, we now have Zealots stacked as a distraction, and I said that the Orator was, in the last video I talked about it, it was kind of, in my eyes, a Dreadnought carrier. And I still see it as exactly that. A Dreadnought carrier, however, it's still a Dreadnought, so it has extremely monstrous teeth if you're going to try and fight with it. But the reason I called it a carrier is because of exactly what I saw in Cyrus's video. It uses spawns as a distraction or fighting mechanism, and they do extremely well at just that. And one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to reintroduce low or no repair time ships to my fleets and just focus on them having guns. However, there hasn't been any good tanking ships lately that I've actually enjoyed because of how dangerous some of the targets are. Well, in the case of the Zealots, I can use them in conjunction with Mark 6 Inquisitors that are fully equipped is what I'm thinking. Low-level weapons keep the weight down, and just try and build a few different things around the Orator to keep her weight down in order for it to be a Dreadnought carrier with distraction spawns. But even more than that, as it's leveled up, I'm going to slowly replace the Zealots and put the high levels on. At Mark 2, I'm most likely going to go for a full level 3 Zealot build. And when we can get our hands on the level 4 Zealots, I'm going to definitely go for them. Really? Well, that's not a surprise. Well, looks like that's going to be it, everybody. What do you all think of the Orator and the Zealot so far? Is it an interesting ship in your eyes? Because I've actually found quite a few entertaining uses for it, and just thinking of the various possibilities that the Zealots can be employed, it's interesting to consider what we can do and what we can't do, and there's a lot more that we can do than we can't. But that's going to be it, everybody. Be safe out in the void, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.